What we're looking at here is Reza Pahlavi, son of the last Shah of Iran, calling for an end to the Islamic regime that is currently running the country.
In my view, quite logical to expect that Britain also stands on the right side of history and support the aspiration of a nation that wants to deliver itself from a vile regime that from its inception has been the root cause of chaos, instability, terrorism, radicalism, and what have you.
The Ayatollahs have ruled since 1979, when the Iranian Revolution saw the Crown Prince's father kicked out of power. But now the regime is weak, and Mr. Pahlavi believes the time has come for it to fall. If it does, he says he is willing to step up and lead the country towards a brighter future. But who is this exiled monarch? What exactly is he promising? And why now? Let's find out. Reza Pahlavi is the eldest son of Mohammed, the last Shah of Iran, who ruled the country from 1919 until he was deposed in 1979. Mohammed was a modernizer and an autocrat. He was an ally of the West and wanted to make Iran into a Western-style state, but he also wanted to maintain his own absolute power. That inspired a coalition of opponents to rise up and oust him in a revolution which ultimately led to the modern-day Islamic regime. Reza Pahlavi was not in Iran to witness his father's downfall. He left the country the year before to go to America and train as a fighter pilot. The revolution forced him to remain there. In fact, he has not been back to his homeland ever since, instead splitting his time between the US and Europe. From the West, he has built a platform as an outspoken critic of Iran's clerics. From LA, he broadcasts messages denouncing the regime, which are watched by the Iranian diaspora and dissidents within Iran who tune in via illegal satellites. He also hobnobs with Western politicians and think tanks, advocating against the regime and criticizing policies which help prop it up. For example, Obama's 2015 nuclear deal. But the Crown Prince's message has really started to gain traction in recent months, as Israel has dismantled Iran's powerful proxy network and its nuclear program. First came Hamas, which was wrecked by the IDF in revenge for October 7th. Then Hezbollah in Lebanon, with the pager attack and deadly strike on its leader, Hassan Nasrallah. The fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria also played into Israel's hands before the airstrikes on Iran itself, which killed its top generals and disabled its nuclear sites. America even joined in with that operation, using 6 massive ordnance penetrator bombs to attack the one atomic lab that Israel's weapons couldn't reach. This was supposed to be Iran's insurance policy, the proxy groups to keep Israel at bay, and the nuclear weapons to intimidate even the US. Now, all that is either gone or seriously damaged, which has led to open talk of regime change. Mr. Pahlavi is obviously making the most of this once-in-a-generation opportunity. But what exactly does he want for Iran? If we go back to the tapes, then we can hear him talk about his vision.
My commitment has always been all these years a unique mission of making sure that our country is liberated and the Iranian people ultimately get to decide for their future what they want to have by means of the ballot box, a constitutional process, and ultimately whatever constitutional project is proposed to the nation, it will be ratified by a referendum. My role in all this at this point is to galvanize the opposition. I've stepped in to offer my leadership role in a campaign for transition in 2 phases. Number one, how we can all agree on a common path. When I say all, I mean all secular democratic forces that believe at the very least in these 3 key principles that I've advocated as a precondition to agree to work together. Respecting Iran's territorial integrity, individual freedoms of Iranians and equal rights under the law for all citizens of the land, and the importance of separation of church from state, of religion from government, as the 3, I think, minimum prerequisite to agree on a common agenda. While the opposition may be diverse in their ultimate goal, we have Republicans, we have monarchists, we have people in the middle, on the left, on the right. I'm calling for, on the continuation of the effort of building a coalition, a conference that will precisely address this matter of exactly how we can bring all these elements to play a critical role in this phase between now until this regime is no longer there, but most importantly, post-regime collapse. How do we fill the vacuum? What's the transition plan? What do we do in the first 100 days to stabilize the nation, make sure the country continues to operate, and prepare the grounds for the process I was indicating? So my role is all this is to obviously above the fray, not taking sides, but to help that process take place and ensure the Iranian people and the world watching that, contrary to some people voicing their concern, could there be, as a result of collapse, a chaos or a vacuum? In the case of Iran, and very much unlike what we saw in recent years happen in the region, example, what happened in Iraq, there is a plan to be as inclusive as possible for elements that want to peel away from the regime to be part of that solution. All those whose hands are not soiled with the blood of the Iranian people should be able to have a role to play in the rebuilding of our nation. In fact, another campaign parallel to what I'm doing with the opposition is to offer a line of access for all those who want to defect, whether they are military, intelligence, or civilian cadres of government, to be able to reach us and send us their intents to collaborate and cooperate. One of the key aspects, especially in the Shiite tradition and Shiite tenets, is the fact that what Khomeini did was an aberration to the principles of Shiite Islam. The only time there could be religious governance for earth is those who are, as they refer to as ma'asum, which means innocent, pure, those who have not committed a sin, none of which exists right now in the real world. Otherwise saying that until that time, it is not our role to be representatives of God because we are all sinners. Khomeini said, no, I am God's representative on earth. For those two reasons, from the very beginning, this regime was at odds with the very principle of the religions they claim to represent. So, why is this explanation important? Because you ask me what's the role of the clerics. Many clerics inside Iran, as a result of what this regime has done, and as a result of doing it in the name of religion, have caused severe blow to their credibility or legitimacy. People are moving away from the faith. They're converting to other religions. One of the fastest growing religions in Iran today is Christianity, among others. And of course, they are being persecuted as the regime from the very beginning started to persecute other religious groups, the Baha'is, the Jews, and what have you. Today it's the Christians. Point being that they understand that, again, even in the interests of the faith, if they are looking at it from the prism of the Shiite clergy, they don't want this regime to continue.
So, is there any chance of this actually happening? Well, the first thing to say is that neither Israel nor the US seem keen to be the ones to depose Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran's current ruler. Benjamin Netanyahu has certainly talked of regime change, but has been clear that he wants the Iranian people to do it themselves. As if to underline that fact, we don't believe Khamenei was targeted in the recent Israeli airstrikes. Donald Trump also talked of regime change at one point, and could have ordered a strike on Khamenei himself if he'd wanted, but he didn't, and is now calling for talks instead. So, if foreign intervention is off the table, then the only other way for regime change to happen is for the Iranian people to do it. Is that realistic? Yes and no. In the yes column, we can say that Iran has a lot of active resistance movements and regularly sees mass demonstrations against the regime. The last ones took place in 2022, when hundreds of thousands of people marched over the death of Mahsa Amini, a schoolgirl who died in police custody. It took the Iranian regime, which was much stronger back then, almost 6 months to fully quell that uprising. If such demonstrations were to break out today, would the Ayatollah have enough strength left to repeat the feat? There's at least a reasonable doubt over whether he would. In the no column, we have the fact that, despite all of these protests over the years, the regime has always found a way to survive. In part, this is due to the nature of the regime itself. It is deeply embedded in Iranian society, holds almost all the levers of power, and has successfully managed a change of leader from Khomeini to Khamenei, always the trickiest moment for autocratic regimes. But in part, this is also because there is no single figure to unite the many opposition groups, who are often at war with each other, as well as the regime. Mr. Pahlavi is clearly trying to position himself as that figure. But does he hold the clout? As Iran's crown prince, he is perhaps the only man who could claim any kind of right to rule the country. We know he's popular among the Iranian diaspora, and he has good ties with the West. But what we don't know is whether that support extends to Iran itself. Pahlavi's name is sometimes shouted at protests, and he claims to be in touch with dissidents who want him back. But he hasn't been to Iran in decades. And given the way Iran is, there's no polling data we can trust to show us what people really think. What it's going to come down to is whether we trust what he says. How sincere is his conviction? Here's the Crown Prince again.
Whether you are a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Jew or whatever is your profession, or even if you're an atheist, you should have that freedom to practice your own faith. And that's the guarantee that is embedded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I hope will be incorporated into the law of the land, thereby giving the Iranian citizens absolute equality. And I think that, if you want for a nation that has lost total faith and trust in the establishment or their political leaders, the only way you can bring back people to start beginning trusting their institution and trusting the government or trusting the leadership is to be absolutely transparent and honest with them. And part of that process, I think, invokes being as transparent as possible in this discourse. This is not something debated behind closed doors and we tell people, okay, this is a decision, yeah or nay. No, let it be part of it. Because I want the Iranians to be fully invested in that future that they are building. I think society has to be proactive. I don't care how good the law of the land is and how many institutions you build. Without the citizenry taking active part and active role to support it and preserve it and be engaged, you have to make them feel that they own it. Literally, they own it. And that means being as direct with them and ask them from the very get-go to be fully involved. Yes, you need somebody to stir the ship, but that doesn't mean it's a one-man show. It has to be inclusive as much as possible. It has to be diverse as much as possible. No one stays behind. That's the quickest way to make sure that Iranians say, this time, we are collectively going to benefit from it. And the only measure at the end is very simple: the ballot box. I'm not even thinking in terms of what's in it for me personally, other than thinking of all the families that gather around the grave of their loved ones who were massacred by the regime, who were assassinated by the regime, who were executed by the regime. I'm thinking of Mahsa's family. I'm talking about Nikah Shah Karami's mother. I'm talking about all those heroes that we've lost. And whether one time I can see finally in their faces the joy of liberating. So when they look back at the graves of their sons and daughters, they say it was not in vain. That to me would be the most beautiful moment. That's what would be a career's achievement of mission accomplished, to put the smile back on faces who have been crying for 46 years. They deserve better.
That's where this tape stops. But we'll be back soon to play you through another piece of Geopolitics on Tape.